Welcome to CEO Insights. I'm Marilyn de Guzman with Investing News Network. I'm speaking with Matt Nixon, CEO of Labyrinth Resources, an Australian exploration and mining company, about the company's projects in Canada and Australia and the global gold market. Welcome, Matt.
Thanks, Marilyn. Great to be on.
Yeah, great to have you. So let's start with an overview of your company. Could you provide us sort of an introduction of Labyrinth Resources?
Yeah, of course. Labyrinth Resources is an ASX-listed exploration company, as you mentioned, focused on our two high-grade gold projects, one located in Quebec in the prolific Abitibi Belt, and the other located in the renowned Kalgoorlie goldfields of Western Australia. After securing the Labyrinth project in Quebec in 2021, we immediately commenced the diamond drilling exploration programs from both underground and surface, as we have the great ability to access the four levels of historic underground workings that were mined up until 1983. These programs yielded some excellent high-grade results to complement the historic high-grade assays, and we're able to release a maiden JORC 2012 mineral resource estimate in September last year of 500,000 ounces at 5 grams per tonne, and pleasingly with a very high-grade component of 150,000 ounces at 10 grams per tonne. So great outcome for us in the first 12 months since taking the keys of the Labyrinth Gold Project. The scale potential is immense, and we've genuinely only just begun to scratch the surface in terms of exploration in a region through the Abitibi, which is well known for the significant depth of the operations and the increasing grade and depth as well. So lots to look forward to for Labyrinth there. In regards to Commonwealth of WA, again, we have a high-grade gold project with historic proven gold from underground workings. Significant potential, not extensively tested with a drill bit. This year, we also released a JORC mineral resource estimate of 96,000 ounces at 4.8 grams per tonne, giving us a great platform for growth there as well. And that had an open pit and underground component of 40,000 ounces at 3.3 for the open pit and 56,000 ounces at 7 grams per tonne for the underground. So great outcome for the company in that regard also. And we recently completed a drill program at Commonwealth as well. So some high-grade results, very close to surface of up to 35 grams per tonne. Really has us quite pleased to be advancing both projects.
Right. I want to talk to you about sort of an overview of the gold market. As you know, it's been the gold prices has been on the uptick recently. And I'm wondering what your thoughts are in terms of how that has impacted the mining sector. Have you seen that translate to market positivity?
Yeah, excellent question. So, as it's been well documented, particularly in the last probably 6 to 8 weeks, both in US dollar terms, CAD and Aussie dollar, gold prices are touching all-time highs, if not achieving them in terms of Australia. We're talking about plus $2,000 an ounce US and plus $3,000 an ounce in Aussie dollar terms. So, some genuine positivity and around gold prices and we look for that to continue. In terms of impact on mining operations, I think the really interesting point and perhaps unique to the historic expectations of gold price trends and the associated response in the mining industry is that currently the increase in costs and the well-documented inflationary pressures economies around the world, those increase in real mining costs on a per tonne or per ounce basis are still well outstripping the increase in the price of gold. So whilst it's great sentiment and lifts in the price of gold, companies continue to deal with, operating companies continue to deal with real increases in their costs, and that has forced, again, well documented on both sides of the world in regards to Australia and North America, plenty of operations actually being forced into care and maintenance in the current inflationary and cost environment.
Right, and that's interesting to know. In terms of the supply landscapes, there's also been an increasing demand for gold from certain industries, and you mentioned about the high cost of exploration and mining. So, what is the current landscape in terms of supply for gold I understand there's really not been any new gold mines coming up, and production is, not really ramping up. Can you talk a bit more about that?
Yeah, of course. And like all commodities and principles around the world, gold is still supply and demand, and heavily leveraged too. And demand, I think in 2022, the World Gold Council said overall demand increased by circa 18%. And I would imagine, when the statistics come out for this first half year of 2023, it may even be above that, if not consistent. So, jewelry is still the number one, I guess, material demand for gold. But world banks, government banks around the world have been slowly but surely increasing their reserves. And, gold's always historically been seen as a hedge against inflation, and, for the broader market when there's uneasiness or concern over sentiment and the market's volatile, particularly, we're hearing obviously daily about increasing interest rates and, Federal Reserve banks around the globe trying to combat that. People turn to gold and governments turn to gold. And we've seen that definitely in the last 12 to 18 months. But with the higher cost pressures, you're actually seeing a reduction in supply. So as you correctly touched on, gold operations, we haven't seen significant ramp up because of the capital associated, and particularly with new projects coming online. Again, if anything, we've seen the opposite, where the cost pressures are forcing mines to, halt or into care and maintenance for a period of time. Some quite large scale operations have unfortunately gone that way in the last 6 months. And, personally, I don't think we've seen the end of it with the current cost landscape. So it's, lower supply. You'd logically assume that puts more upward pressure on the gold price. And eventually there becomes a tipping point where that gold price and ideally the cost environment, settling out a little bit, particularly in terms of wages and some of the steel supply that obviously impact infrastructure for growth and expansion. When that levels out and the pressure comes off a little bit, these operations become viable, and if not some new deposits at the point of bringing them online, again become viable, and we see that supply increase again. But it's a really interesting year in 2023 for the gold market, absolutely.
hmm And speaking of new deposits, I know exploration continues despite, what's happening in the market. Could you talk about Quebec, where one of your projects is at right now? What's the value proposition for Quebec as an emerging destination for gold? What have you been seeing there?
Yeah, Quebec is an outstanding jurisdiction. There's an absolute reason that we ventured the long flight and the fair bit of travel to get to the other side of the world from Australia. As a jurisdiction, it consistently ranks in the top 5 in terms of mining and exploration jurisdictions around the world, and that's on the back of a few things. It has an excellent and stable government with some world-leading basically incentives particularly for exploration. In terms of again incentivizing companies to put investment into the drill bit and getting reward accordingly. So that obviously really appeals to a company like Labyrinth Resources and many other explorers, and that's well documented. The access to really ultimately cheap power through the hydro makes a big difference, and again is very attractive for producing operations, particularly in that cost environment we we're just talking about. And proven infrastructure, a great access to skilled workforce, skilled labour, and a really mining supportive community and exploration supporting community with proven gold deposits, particularly along the Cadillac Larder Fault, hosts many multi-million ounce deposits and some of the biggest producing mines in the world currently in the top 10. So when it's proven, the jurisdiction's attractive, the government and the population are supportive, with some great access to cheap power. As I said, you've got a great recipe for growth and success, and that's bringing a lot of interested parties from around the world and companies into Quebec. Most recently on a large scale, the entry of goldfields into Quebec with the 50% acquisition of the Osisko Windfall project. That's a unicorn type deposit, and is only going to continue to grow from what I can see. And goldfields entering Quebec is a sign, I think, of everyone wants to be involved.
And you've mentioned, you've had some good successes so far from the work that you've done in your Quebec project. Can you talk a bit more about what the next steps are for your Labyrinth Gold project?
Yeah, absolutely. So, as touched on, completing the surface and underground programs in 2022 and culminating in the high-grade 500,000 ounce JORC resource estimate for us was step one, and we were really pleased with that outcome. And since that time in September, obviously we've seen improving gold sentiment and market conditions, particularly for exploration. So we're looking forward to getting straight into that next phase. And what we have at Labyrinth is a genuine immense strike. We've defined 1.6 kilometres along the existing mine structures, and we've got over 4 kilometres of, it's called the Labyrinth Fault, hence the namesake, which we believe hosts, an immense potential for mineralisation, and that both, areas have been relatively untested in terms of depth. Where the average depth of the resource was around 400 metres, we've tested and demonstrated continuity of all the mine sequence loads down to circa 550 metres. But we really need to and look forward to getting back into the drill bit and expanding basically that resource footprint. So we've demonstrated that those loads continued, as I said. So now it's about infilling that area and growing that resource from 500,000 ounces, towards the larger numbers, and as well as a bit of regional growth opportunity. And that will be our next phase of activity at Labyrinth. And obviously with coming out of the winter, the timing is imminent to begin that next phase of exploration.
And then meanwhile, all that's happening, there's also something going on the other side of the world where your project in Western Australia is also undergoing some exploration programs. Could you talk a bit more about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So Comet Vale, again, in an excellent region around Kalgoorlie, which people that follow the gold industry know really well, demonstrated some world-class operations, and a couple also building, within that couple 100-kilometre radius of Kalgoorlie, and kind of bucking the trend there of keeping costs down and being able to build a processing facility, which is the biggest, call it single cost to get the project up and running. So, we're right in the heart of that, and there's a bit of renewed energy and focus in the gold industry that we're seeing in Western Australia. And Comet Vale, it's a 51% JV owned by Labyrinth, with 49% owned by a private group, and both parties, took the step this year to reinvigorate exploration into the Comet Vale tenure and project. And we targeted initially, the brownfields approach around the historic workings, which would, produce gold historically up to 23 grams per tonne as an average. So really high grade output. And for a small program, Marilyn, majority of holes less than 50 metres vertical depth from surface, to have some really high grade results, multiple metres at over an ounce in terms of grams per tonne, was an excellent outcome for us. And again, it's probably energised the intent to do some further exploration quite rapidly at Comet Vale as well.
Right. So we're certainly going to watch out for more news coming from your company in the next few months.
Thank you very much. Yeah, we look forward to updating the market, and the news flow on both sides of the world in genuine tier 1 jurisdictions. We've got a lot to be excited about, so look forward to keeping you updated.
Great. Thanks. Appreciate your coming here today and sharing your insights on the market as well, and the gold market.
Anytime. Thanks very much for having me.
And thanks for watching. Join us again next time in another engaging conversation on CEO Insights.